Amazing. I can see that we are live. Hello, everybody. If
Mm,
you are tuning in live today, welcome to our
yeah.
second episode of Mystic Musings. So Sean and
Mm,
I will come to you every week, same place, same time, really to rumble, and we'll explain a little bit more. But if you joined us last week, yes, then you probably have a little bit of an idea what this is all about. We'll do a quick recap. By the way, I am Marilise de Villiers-Basson. I'm the founder and CEO, that is the Chief Empowerment Officer
yeah.
of ROAR Coaching and Consulting. So I'm so honored to be joined by Sean Caudry, and I'm going to give Sean just a quick opportunity to say hello.
Marlies, always great to be here with you and to all our viewers. So wonderful to have you with us. To all you Monday mystics, thank you for joining. This is such an imperative and critical time in the history of the world and the history of the planet, in fact. And never before have we been in this place, and never before has it been more imperative for spiritually orientated, spiritually connected individuals, regardless of race, color, what language you speak, what gender you are. Really, it is time for us to rise, spiritually orientated, conscious leaders, visionaries, change makers, to really come to the fore, step up and out and into the world to facilitate what is absolutely imperative, a large-scale transition. That's a very brief introduction. I'm going to go into more, but other than that, I am Sean Caudry, and absolutely delighted, of course, to be joined by Marilise as we go into the Mystic Musings, the Rumblings of a Monday Mystic. I am CEO of Center of Liberation. This is the place of liberating the heart, combining, merging with the cosmic mind and heart to bring about change and really delve deeply into ushering in a new earth and a new world. So that is what I'm passionate about. Thank you, Marilise.
Yeah, and what's so beautiful about what's really emerging for me, because yes, I'm a teacher and I'm a leader, but I'm always a student first. So I think what is so beautiful, from the conversations that Sean and I have been having along the journey so far. I mean, we've only known each other a relatively short time, but it feels like we've known each other lifetimes already. But really, what's so beautiful about this is the coming together of people who are really stepping out. And I think this is what made us compelled to do this podcast, because we wanted more modern day mystics, people that are spiritually orientated, as Sean say, but who are sort of doing it in secret and not really coming forwards, because like, we want to really make it more socially acceptable. We want to make it a normal conversation. We want to actually bring forward and our collective power to step forward, and this is really beautiful for us. And so, I mean, last week we spent quite a bit of time contextualizing what Mystic Musings is all about. So if you've missed last week, please go back to the first episode, because that will give you the real context. And if you did join us last week, you will remember that we said this week we are going to focus more on the healing aspects. So what I want to sort of frame for you is we're sort of looking at this from sort of two perspectives. So if you think about you and how powerful you are, that you have all the power inside you to make every single dream you've ever had come true, there is an aspect of backwards looking and forwards looking. Okay, so we're saying that you are the creator of your life, so you're being called forward into more. And then you're also the healer of your own life. So you are your own healer. And that's the backward looking piece. And that's about, calling back your power. And so the whole frame is so super helpful. And I really only been getting this frame since I've been speaking to Sean, and since we did this podcast last week. So it's really helpful for me, but I wanted you to create that frame as well. And so this week, we really want to sort of look at the calling back your power so that you are your own healer piece. And
Mm.
so we talked a little bit, we touched a little bit on, going back and sort of healing from past traumas. And Sean has introduced us to the concept of the core wound. So Sean, I think I'd just like us to pick up there and just to sort of help our listeners and our viewers understand a little bit better what we mean by that core wound.
Thanks, Marlies. I'm going to go into the core wound shortly. I want to just take a step back,
Okay,
just for our
brilliant.
viewers, and then sort of set some context, and then we can enter into the core wound and what do we mean by that. I think firstly, just to say, what is so critical about this time and what's so imperative about the healing work, and for modern day mystics who are playing a critical role, there's this rise of the modern day mystic. And again, I just want to contextualize a modern day mystic as a spiritually orientated individual. You've been deeply involved in spiritually orientated work. You believe you are powerful. You believe that you participate in creating your own reality. You believe in your thoughts and your emotions and the valuable role that plays, while at the same time you've lived a life where you've accomplished extraordinary things. You are going to see that because you're going to have a very strong underminer and a very strong saboteur. And so what's happened over time is, just because of the nature of how powerful you are, you've attracted into your life experiences that have resulted in you dimming your power, hiding your power, shutting down your power, playing smalls, keeping hidden, suppressing your voice, losing your voice and your perspectives, even though you've still come through life rumbling and hustling and done exceptionally well, no doubt, and being successful. But it's been a stress, it's been a struggle, it's been, you face challenges and extraordinary challenges that to the ordinary human would be looking at you going, wow, look at your life. To you, it feels ordinary. And you always delved into a very deep relationship and spiritually orientated relationship with the divine. So it just gives you a little bit of insight as to the rise of the modern day mystic. And then, as Marilee says, and again, I just want to, as segue into the core wound, I want to just position that when I opened this conversation, I said we have never been in a time in history where we need the modern day mystic to really rise, to come up and out and through into the world, expressing and finding your message and getting clarity on your message and your calling, and moving this forward into the world in a much more public and visible way. So imperative. It's time for falling out the closet and bringing this integrated and embodied spiritual human experience into front and center. I say this, why? Because we are at the end of an era. If you're listening to this channel, you are plugged into what's happening globally. You are plugged into the immense crisis and chaos that is currently underway globally. I'm living in the States. I'm seeing it in the States. We're seeing phenomenal things in the US election, and just watching on literally almost a daily, weekly basis, old structures starting to crumble. Why? Because people want to be liberated. They want to be beyond the veil in terms of what's possible. They want that sense of sovereignty. And so we're coming to the end of an era. And that end of the era has been facilitated, but by a, let's say, a way of operating as a human. If you can imagine a computer has a key operating system, the main operating system from which it operates. And we know that in technology, there are continuously upgrades. My release is in cybersecurity. We are continuously upgrading the operating systems and technology to keep rate and pace, obviously, with the changes. This is no different to the human operating system. And to build in what Marlies was saying, the old operating system was one that was based on survival. For billions and billions of years, human beings have been in a place of survival where we've had to protect ourselves, to have mechanisms and strategies to help us belong, have mechanisms and strategies to keep ourselves, let's say, with just the basics, eating, sleeping, having security, sense of safety, having money coming in. But it's all been on survival mechanisms. That's been the operating system. Now we're shifting into an era, but the thing is, we're not quite in that new era. We're in this huge transitionary phase, which is asking us to come forward, and asking us to come forward in our power. And what is this power? This power is this quantum life force that exists all around us and that exists in us. God is in us, source is in us, the universe is in us. We are the universe. And I don't want to go into that conversation today, but I will just leave it there to say, the more that this new upgraded operating system comes in place, where we know that we are source, we are the universe, that source, the divine, is working through us and wants to express through us and create a different experience in the world, opening up and opening our channels up to allow that. And so that sort of merging with the cosmic mind and heart starts to happen is an imperative time of this transition. And many of us are in that transition. You can feel it for yourselves. You have been spiritually orientated, but this does mean, and so I come to the core wound, this does mean that through this transitionary period, as we're upgrading to this new operating system of this kind of these quantum powers that we can wake up in ourselves. Again, I'm not going to go into all of those now, but suffice to say, we can truly, truly co-create a different life experience individually and collectively. But it does mean that we've got to go into core wounds and our core wounds. And the big challenge for many modern day mystics that currently, they know that they're being called forward to something more. They know that the call forward to something bigger, to more expressions, to get visibility is underway. There's not quite clarity on what their calling is. Both Maralise and I work deeply into that space with people to help facilitate that clarity. However, that call forward, it's just this prompt, it's this impulse. What is terrifying, what is scary, and what's raising fear for many of us is that it's asking us to move through and heal the core wound. But this is not the ordinary core wound of like, hey, I had a personal trauma. I have had many personal traumas. I was explaining in the previous episode just about my own coming out as being gay 30 years ago and how difficult that was. And that was one of the first inception points where I stood in my power, expressed my power, but because of societal factors, had a very negative experience, faced that abandonment, faced that rejection. I was like, whoa, hey, like, I'm not doing that again. Like, let me protect myself. Like I said, it was the survival strategies. How do I belong? How do I protect myself? This is scary to be out in the world on my own. And so I, shut down truth and authenticity to a certain extent. And the journey I've had to go through is to, having felt the call, having felt the pull to get visible, to speak my message and to find my message, it pulled me through back into visibility. That was my journey. If you follow me on social media, I'm very out and about. I'm very public. I have opinions. I am very expressive. This was not like me. And it's been a very deliberate strategy when I realized that my healing of my trauma of being rejected and abandoned, this was not just about healing the core wound for myself of losing power, of facing abandonment because of who I was, and then hiding my power. That if I'm going to heal fundamentally underneath that was the shame of who I was. It was the shame of showing up different. It was the shame of being different in terms of my sexual orientation. But I knew that for me, once I could start understanding the core wound, is that many of us carry the core wound of shame in terms of who we are because of who we are and the expression of who we are. We carry this core wound of guilt that I am different and I'm not the same. We carry the core wound in terms of, for me in particular, like I say, it was shame. There are other core wounds. I'm going to hand over to Maralise now, but just to kind of start closing this out, is that this particular core wound, when I heal the shame of coming out and saying my existence matters, I am whole and complete. There is nothing wrong with me fundamentally. For many years, I was very pissed off at the divine and very pissed off at life. How the fuck could you make me gay? What the hell? Like, how could you do that to me? What did I do wrong? Why are you punishing me? You can imagine, I was 20, even younger than that when I started to know. And it was just, I was so angry. I was like, how could you do this to me? What have I, is there something wrong with me that you have given me this thing? And so many of us, we carry, I want to say, this, whatever it is, whether it comes in illness or whether it comes in disability or in a physical ailment. For me, this was like, I guess, an emotional wound. As I have moved through into healing, that my existence matters. There is nothing wrong with me. I'm healing this collective wound for humanity and for my ancestors and for historically. And as I heal that, I can move out of the operating system of fear. The fears around having to have strategies to protect myself, the fear, which meant I would keep small, I wouldn't be visible, for example. The mechanisms of how do I belong? And instead of showing up in the truth, and I was showing up in truth and authenticity way back then, but I kind of dimmed it and would be like hiding away. But those mechanisms to belong meant that I would compromise, I would shapeshift, I would call myself a chameleon. Ooh, what does society want me to be now? In friendships, ooh, what do my friends need to be, just so that I could belong? And then at times, and so that's the other, like I said, those survival mechanisms, old operating systems to belong. And then the final one is like, how do I make sure that I am earning a salary, that I'm earning money? And so let me just do something because I don't really value myself and don't really value who I am and my ideas and the innovation, because look what happened last time I came out and was so vocal about the expression of truth. So, getting involved sometimes earlier on in my life, not so much, in the last 10 or 15 years, I've been very much more aligned to my authentic journey. But prior to that, just getting involved in jobs that paid the bill, just so that I could earn some kind of salary and be accepted in some places. So that's how I'm tying in what Marlies is saying. We have this old operating system that needs to be collapsed, and many of you have started collapsing it. So it's the operating system that says, because of who I am, let me find survival strategies where I can just belong, where I'm protected, where I'm safe, and where I can earn a salary and income and pay the bills, but maybe I'm not fully aligned with the expression of who I am. And as you move through this time as modern day mystic to heal the core wound, mine was shame. There are others. You are healing it for the collective, and that's what's making it so much more intense. Because for me to heal shame, I've had to get very public, very visible, and reclaim and call back my power through my life and be so delighted and happy in the expression of who I am. So I hope that that's quite a long answer, but Marlies, I would love to hear from you. What are your kind of thoughts and ideas around the core wound and healing? I know this is a large part of the work that you do.
Yeah, so it's really it's sort of, I think that the theme around shame for me is really kind of, again, I shared how at the age of 12 I spoke up against our elderly neighbor who sexually abused me. And coming from a really small town and on the outside being this very capable child, being the oldest daughter of three girls, and being the responsible one, and kind of this whole kind of good girl perfectionism mentality, that I don't know, it sort of just shaped, I think, from a very, very young age. And I think what was really the thing for me that really started creating a narrative, because it's not what happened to you, it's the meaning you give what happens to you. And so
Beautiful.
I started creating a very I don't want to say toxic narrative, but a very, very let's just be kind to ourselves for a moment. I started developing a very real, very unhelpful narrative around I am damaged goods, in the sense that
Feel that.
I thought that everybody in the little small town where we grew up knew about the abuse, and I was very self-conscious about the way boys looked at me, and I thought they looked at me with disgust and shame. So the theme around shame, I can really relate with that, because that for me then created that feeling of, okay, I just want to disappear. And that's around about that time when I also started excessively exercising. So I literally would exercise 3 times a day, 4 hours, and then suddenly, over a very short period of time, started losing a lot of weight. And then very rapidly that developed into an eating disorder, and one that would be with me in various shapes and forms for another 15 years. So I mean, I went through my whole
mm,
high school,
mm,
my whole
mm,
university years. I did a stint in rehab, um, when I was at uni, and it was really just that whole. I don't think there's this like there was this strong kind of pull to punish myself, to abuse myself, because I just couldn't be good. Like I just couldn't. I use the phrase "put people's noses out of joint." It's like I've always felt like
mm,
I had to make myself small because people were threatened and intimidated, and it's this whole narrative, and not necessarily the truth. Like I recognize now, and that's why I created Roar, the 4-step process, because Roar is all about you standing guard at the door of your mind and catching those thoughts, one by one by one. It's like having this SWAT team of angels,
mm.
catching those lies, catching those unhelpful thoughts. But to heal is painful, right? So, and I want to talk a little bit about that with you, Sean, and I would love your perspectives, because every time you revisit it, every time you share the narrative, you share the story, there's a piece of healing that happens, but there's also a reliving of the trauma that happens. So at what point can you move on? And so it's taken me years and years and years, and I still revisit moments, and there's another piece, and then there's another
Mm.
piece, and it's kind of all these pieces of the puzzle coming together. But sometimes it's really bloody hard to find that piece and to actually see the piece and to actually accept the piece, which is kind of like
Mm.
the A in the Roar is about allowing those feelings, allowing the emotions, feeling it fully, and then redirecting, reframing, moving forwards. So you've got to go through the whole process, and I think that can be bloody painful.
Uh, Absolutely, Marlies. I will
Mouthful.
say that. Oh, and thank you so much for sharing so beautifully, vulnerably there. And I can, we
You
share very similar stories where, that feeling of feeling disgusting about ourselves and that we are disgusting. And,
too.
whilst yours was showing up in excessive exercise, you know, many of you, I'm sure, can relate to that. And I know I can relate to it because I felt so disgusting for myself. I wanted to numb the pain of feeling so disgusting and so like dirty that mine showed up for once I did express to my parents, mine showed up in terms of getting addicted to slimming tonics, so excessive sport. I was a professional squash player, a phenomenal squash player on the world circuit, binge drinking, and just finding mechanisms to escape. And then, from after squash, it went into excessive like running. And as I say, I felt so disgusting in my body that at some point I was carrying excessive weight and got involved in like slimming tonics and etc. And knew at some point that it was time to shift my life when I hit a real low point. And I'm sure that's true for Marlies as well. And at that low point, it's like, okay, like I need to change things, and I'm just not showing up in the kind of life that I'm wanting to show up. And so the call back that happened for me at about 33, 34. And so then the calling back of my power and integrating my soul and calling back my soul and my spirit began. And so, I will say at that point in time, at that particular turning point in my life, and my release again, I'm sure it's similar for you, the journey of awareness started. And I will say that consciousness is not for sissies, and waking up is not for sissies. Enlightenment is not for sissies. And it takes an immense amount of courage to do the healing, because the healing, you heal yourself and then you heal your family and heal for generations. But I do feel for the rise of the modern day mystic, like I say, the time now is a lot of us have done a lot of the personal healing, And there's still remnants of that. So as we move into this new operating system where I do believe our bodies, because of the healing, we're filled with more light. And and again, future conversations, but because we are filled with more light, the ability to create it with ease, the ability to move into a place of synergy, of collaboration, of a world where we can all thrive, greater levels of joy, greater levels of abundance, which is our natural coding that we come in with as souls, joy, aliveness, love of life, abundance. Those are our natural codes. We are born with those codes, but the stories and the narratives and the limitations and the programming and our own, what we signed up for, what's interesting, we signed up for the separation journey. I signed up for, as a soul, mechanisms in this lifetime to bring me back to wholeness. When I say wholeness, when one of the programs that I run is the Abundant Mystic, the Journey Home. I signed up for the separation journey. I chose it. I said yes to it in order for me to come back into union with and communion with the divine and my divine nature. And even now, the divine is not outside of me. And oftentimes, even I'm still embodying this concept. And it comes from a meditation a download I received in a 2022 Joe meditation retreat I was in, where the kingdom of God is in you, God is in you. And I've worked with that extensively. Again, not going into that now, but effectively knowing that God is not outside of me, the divine is not outside of me, and I could never say God. So the fact that I can say it so beautifully and easily, I just couldn't say the word God until about, as I say, I had this meditation download. And suffice to say, Marilise, to come to sort of answering your question, is that we are at a place where a lot of our individual healing has taken place. Many of us either, I would say that the nature of people tuning into these kind of conversations are probably somewhat in the middle of their journeys, of the transformation journey, of their big healing individual journey. You will move and continue, and there's an intensification. So many of you would have faced, especially since COVID, but this kind of culmination of a period of 2019 until now, and there's still some of it less, like the intensification of the shit that's going on in your life. You're going, WTF? Like, WTF, what is going on? Because it is incessant, it's consistent. The asks to step into truth, and to shave away and drop more of the limitations. It's like big things are happening to a lot of us modern day mystics, or have happened. And so know this, that the intensification will start to drop, because as you move from the individual healing and the big collective healing, it is asking you to look at what's happening in your life. Like, what is happening in my life, and what is this actually trying to show me in terms of what's still available to heal? Because your heart has actually set up the electromagnetic field and the magnetic field to call this experience into your life for you to heal it. And that's a flip. That's, if you listen to what I've said, and I want you to really pick up what I'm laying down here. My life, what I came to realize, it was a huge reframe, and I came to realize this recently. I work with a spiritual mentor. This is the work that I love doing with people. It's a massive reframe to understand that my heart, through my life and previous lives, had set up the experiences, the magnetic field, to call in the situations for me to actually heal hiding my heart, to bring my heart out even more. So I want to tie that back to me coming out as being gay. It reframed the whole experience. And this is recent. This was about a month or 6 weeks ago. It was just this massive breakthrough and light bulb moment of going, ha, to realize that when I signed up for this particular life, that my heart would call back my hidden heart from previous lifetimes. And that's also why it's so intense. I had become so disconnected from the divine and the truth of who I was in previous lifetimes and harsh experiences, including this one, that being gay and me actually stepping out at the age of 20, so some 31 years ago, was not an act of like me actually coming out and expressing truth and then hiding. It was one of the most powerful, courageous acts I could have taken at that time, that actually I was powerful and strong enough at the age of 20, 30 years ago, to stand up in the face of society. And Marilise, this would be true for you, to stand up to your abuser and what you did at 20 years ago. actually, it didn't crush my power. I'd called in being gay in this lifetime so I could bring my heart very forward. Sorry, there's my alarm. So I could actually bring my heart more out, and I had the power and the strength to bring my heart out. And that actually set up, even though I went into the binge drinking and, addictions and that kind of stuff, because at that time I didn't have the skills to deal with it. But I continued to show up in my truth. And so I'd like you just to consider whatever your core wounding trauma was, to reframe it to say, wow, that was actually my heart set up the electromagnetic field to call that in so that I could go on a journey to actually be courageous. And I've demonstrated so much courage through my life, and I've worked through so much, and I'm that self-aware that now my heart is now more front and center of my life. And when we tune into our hearts, that it becomes, and we become heart led because of the healing, we have called back our heart. What does that mean? Calling back our hearts to lead our lives means that we now have access to the cosmic intelligence. We have taken off so much of the shit that was like keeping it small and the programming. And when you have access to cosmic intelligence, you have access to innovation you never had access to, new ideas that no one else has had. This is coming from the intelligence of the cosmos, of the universe. You have access to solutions that no one would have dreamed of, that seem almost common sense. You start calling in synchronicities that are like, where and how the fuck did this happen? And this is the modern day mystic, you're calling in, and you're truly bringing forward the heart to pull through very powerfully a level of like what seemed to be miracles in the past that only your mystics and your sages and your masters could call through. We are now able to do that. That's what starts to become available when you do the healing journey and the deep work of constantly looking in your environment and saying, shit, I might not enjoy this particular experience that I'm going through right now, but I know that the bigger experiences that are more and more, I'm actually acting on my heart to bring it front and center. And that then brings me into alignment with the expression of my divine self and phenomenal superpowers and quantum powers into the world. And so I would encourage you to keep going into that healing space. But Marlies, I want to, that's my contribution to a long answer to your question.
Thank you. Yeah, and that what you're describing is that sort of spiritual technology we spoke about last week, which is just kind of, you've just beautifully explained what we mean by that spiritual technology. And I love the way Dr. Sue Morter, she explains it. She talks about the bus stop conversation. So she's basically saying, when our souls come to earth, we actually have a bus stop conversation with someone who passes by, and then we make a contract and we say, let's say I want to learn a level 8 on the scale of 10 to forgive, and then something very big happens in your life to learn that lesson, that 8 of forgiveness. Let's say someone's drunk driving one night and crashed into your car and killed one of your family members, something like that. And that's a very big forgiveness journey, so I think what you're describing in terms of what we sign up for, it really resonates in terms of that conversation, that bus stop conversation. So beautiful. Can you believe it's 30 minutes? We said we'll stick to 30 minutes. So many golden threads. You kept saying, oh, I'm not going to go into that today. I'm not going to go into that today. So we will be going into those things. Plenty of opportunities for us to go deeper into these conversations, into the threads. Please, if there is anything that you would love to hear more about, put it in the comments. Tell us, is there a particular theme that you would like us to prioritize, to go deeper into? Do you have any questions for us? We want this to be a conversation. We want this to be interactive. And we really, really invite you to come and join the conversation and publicly declare that you are a modern day mystic. What do you say, Sean?
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Marlies. And absolutely, we can delve into, once I start going and you start going down these wormholes, it's very possible we can go for hours. And so I'm very glad that you hold me to the time. But we'd love to hear comments. Absolutely. Please post your comments. What's topical? What's of interest for you? We will certainly delve deeply into those topics, and reach out to either one of us. We're on social media, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram. You can find us there. We both are doing profound and incredible work in the space to move and the trajectory of human consciousness, to bring people into alignment with their calling, and to certainly raise the consciousness of the planet, to get more visible. And I think importantly, one of the conversations at some point we're going to go into is just the importance of us coming into abundance and wealth and money, and the importance of why this is so important, and to move through the various narratives that we have about that and about power. So really looking forward to future conversations. Marlies, as always, it's an absolute pleasure to be with you and to hear your stories and your musings and your incredible nature and the incredible work that you're doing in the world. So much wisdom, and just value you so much.
Thank you, Sean, and I love you and I appreciate you, because I cannot think of anybody else that I would love to journey with in and progressing this conversation. I'm really very truly grateful that I can be your sidekick for want of a better word.
Absolutely, in the sidecar. For
So
sure.
love it. Everybody take
Beautiful.
great care, and we'll see you
Lots of
next
love.
week. Same time, same place. Bye for now.
Beautiful.